Alright guys, we are doing a tutorial today for GarageBand, how to make a super fast, super simple house, dance, EDM, whatever you want to call it, song using just the pre-made loops in GarageBand. Now I might have downloaded some extra sound packs. I can't really remember at this point. I don't really use GarageBand all that much. I use Logic Pro for the most part, but most of these sounds are going to be in your loops right over here, if not all of them. So if this is your first time using GarageBand or you're a newbie, there's a couple things I usually do just by default, but you could do it differently if you want. The first thing you want to do is usually change your tempo. So this is 120. Obviously, if you double click on it and make it higher, like 134, that's going to be a faster techno or dance or house song. Typically, that's the dance songs are higher beats per minute, so that's 120 beats per minute, which is basically 2 beats per second, so that gives you the higher tempo with the energy. The next thing I usually do is change the key. This one's an E minor, but if you click there, you can change it to anything you want. This will change the sound of your loops. For example, if I have this little loop right here, if you change the key, that's probably going to change that sound and it's going to give you a different sound. It makes the pre-made loops sound a little less identifiable and a little less monotonous, and it won't be as common to hear them on other people's tracks and that sort of thing. Now, for house music, a lot of people do different things to do start their project or the way they work, but for me, I like to get a good kick drum or a low end, like something driving the track right away. It kind of just gives you that bass line to work from. And another trick for house music you may not know if you're a beginner, the kick is always mixed really high, like more than any other type of music. The kick and all the drums really are mixed really high, really important for giving the right energy for the song. So here's a good one that people don't probably realize it's just in GarageBand. There's actually a lot of great loops in GarageBand. Sometimes you have to search around and find them, but they're already pre-made and they're pretty solid considering it's a free program. So here's the one I used for this project. Basically, if it can't stand on its own, like if you wouldn't want to hear the kick for like 2 or 3 seconds just as the kick, it's probably not the right one. Now you can get way more complicated and layer your kicks and process them and EQ them and all that sort of things, and all that is important. But for a beginner, you're just going to want to find one that sounds pretty good on its own and is very like driving and could be the center of the track. So that kick right there, if you hit the B button in GarageBand, as of this recording at least, this will take you to this little smart controls thing down here. And then you don't want to go to the master track, you want to go to the regular track. There's actually a way to put plugins on these that most people probably don't know is there. Down here where it says plugins, by default, you're usually going to have a channel EQ plugin here. So what we're going to do is we're going to solo this track. We're going to click on this little headphone guy that solos it so you just hear this one loop. And if we click on the channel EQ button in the middle, that turns it off on the left, and this can change the settings on the right, but the middle is going to be your main settings for the plugin. You got the little EQ guy here. Now I don't have any EQ on this track, it's just on by default on new loops in GarageBand, but if you turn the analyzer on, you'll see what frequencies this kick is actually doing. So as with most kick drums, it's going to be high in the low end here. This is the bass and into the sub bass even, and light on the EQ on the high end here. Not going to be a lot of frequencies, but you can see there's some in the mid range and a little bit up top here that's going to give you that click sound. So that's just important to note for kick drums. So that's going to be your low end of the track. And then let's do the other little drums while we're in here. You basically want to have a good clap on the 2 and 4 beat, which is for newbies to dance music. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4. Every measure is going to be the kick drum, like unts, 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 right? But then on the 2 and 4, which is only every other beat, is going to be the clap or the snare or both, whatever you want to put there. So this one, there's a really good pre-made clap that I like to use in GarageBand. It's called South City Clap. I think it's actually a hip hop clap, but I like to use it for electronic music. Doesn't sound that exciting on its own, but when you mix it in with another beat, you're already ready to go. So that's really good. Claps, I tend not to touch all that much. You can reverb them a little bit, give them a little more space. You can pan them left and right if you want, but again, these are more advanced techniques that you probably don't have to worry about right now. And then you're going to want to have other variations in the percussion, especially if you're making a hip hop, or I'm sorry, a dance track that you want to have a lot of energy to. You don't want to just have the same drums the whole time. That would get boring and repetitive. So I use this other loop it's a pop-up beat. So not that exciting on its own, but you can hear that it has a solid kick in there and has a lot of energy, has some other percussion going on. What I did for this one, actually, if you zoom way in using this little tool over here to zoom in, I actually took the longer loop and I cut it down to be even simpler because I think there was a sound effect in there, but I just wanted the kick and the little hits and then back to the kick. So you can see the kick is that big waveform right there, two little accents right here. The little the little hi-hats, I believe those are, or a shaker, I'm not entirely sure. So now we've got some good percussion going. Let's see what else we have in the way of percussion here. We've got a little topper. So a topper is like high-end treble-y stuff that adds energy to the track that really gets it moving. You're not going to typically hear it, it's super loud, but in addition to the kick and the 2 and 4 like clap or snare, it's going to give you a lot more energy. And hi-hats and toppers are essentials for dance music. So let's just hear what I'm talking about here. So that's a pretty good idea of what you want to go with if you want like a 90s sound too. That's a very 90s-ish loop there. And then we've got another topper I put on here. Kind of gets your head bobbing like right away. You just layer these in and you're not going to necessarily hear every accent of every topper, but with everything going together, it gives a really good energy. So let's just put a couple things together really quick here so you can hear what I mean. We got this pop-up beat, this topper, this clap, and I don't think, yeah, we don't have another kick in there. So let's just do that really quick. So that's really good. You could hear just that for a minute if you were in a club and they were just transitioning between, songs as like a transition thing. And that's a really good way to get some energy going without doing a whole lot on your end. So let's see what else we really have here that you guys would want to know about. We've got this sub-deep topper, which is kind of a cool thing. Let's play that really quick. You can hear how that varies a little bit compared to the other rhythms, so we got a little variation as you go through the track, some changes and that sort of thing. And I've got a different clap here. And then I've got a different hi-hat here, just a straightforward one though. And I think that's pretty much everything in the way of percussion. So percussion, you want to make sure there's enough there where it's not boring and it's not repetitive or too repetitive, but just really powerful and clear. So the rhythm of the track really grabs you and keeps you focused on the track. Your mind doesn't wander because there's weak drums or that kind of thing. So then we're going to get to the leads, and the thing that I find that a lot of people don't tell you when you're starting out is that less is more. Meaning you don't want to have crazy complicated leads with all these different parts and all these different frequencies. Your mix will sound bad. Your ear won't know what to do. So if you look at like a song like Avicii Levels or other really big dance tracks that have, really high numbers of plays that are like almost pop music, they have one hook or two hooks that really just drills into your brain. There's not a whole lot going on in terms of complexity, in terms of melodies and that sorts of things. You want something that sticks with you, sounds good, and you can loop it over and over again. So luckily with GarageBand pre-made loops, it's really easy to find stuff that sounds good right off the bat. So we've got this polygon sub bass here. So I mean, you could just have that basically the whole track and it would be fine. But obviously we want to make it a little more complicated than that. But here's what it would sound like just with the beat and just the melody. So already really solid. Then we'll go to this next melody here. These don't play at the same time. These are different sections. So like to give breaks or variations on the main theme. So that's pretty badass. That's really cool for hearing a main melody. It's really thick. There's a lot going on there. As it says, it's layers. It's not just one little like synth note or that kind of thing. So that's really strong. And that's a really good way to quickly fill up your track. But again, you could hear how if we had this, playing with this, not only would it not work, it's just too much going on even without the percussion. So then we've got a little arp here. This isn't really a main part. You can see it's only included a little bit in the song, but it gives you a nice little touch. Okay, so you can hear that's a little different than what's going on in the other two melodies. So again, to get these loops, you just go right over here to the top right, loop browser, click on that, and GarageBand makes it so super easy to find stuff. It's almost too overwhelming how many sounds there are. So you can go by instrument, you can go by genre, or you can go by descriptors. For something like this, you could probably just type in, you know, if you want something hypnotic. You don't even have to go all that deep into here to find stuff you'd want. So we could do a brass. So these sounds are really great if you're learning or if you are in a rush, basically. They're already ready to go. You can kind of quickly go through them. If you hit the up and down arrow on your keyboard, you can just breeze through it really quickly. It's like insanely easy. So these will also bend to your tempo. So if you have a slow tempo, they'll play back slower. If you have a fast tempo, they're very flexible. They automatically do it for you. GarageBand makes it super cool and easy. And then you can just favorite them if you want. And it'll also tell you how long the loop is. So these are 16 bar loops. And then you can get out of there by hitting the X, close it up, get more screen real estate here. Now the other thing to note is if you click this little downward arrow here, you can go to time and see how long your track is. So we move this little playhead thing over here, and there's our end marker. So this is 4 minutes and 39 seconds-ish. It's important to know how long your track is, just not get lost in the beats and project setting, because you could unknowingly make a really short track or a track that's way too long. So those are little asides, but here we go. Back to the leads. We've got Mega Anthem Synth 2, which is really epic sounding, if I remember correctly. Now, obviously, anybody that uses GarageBand is going to hear that loop and know that it's from GarageBand because it's just so prominent, but for our purposes, that doesn't really matter for right now. I think that's pretty much everything, guys, in terms of individual tracks. This little thing comes in at the second part of the track, and I really liked it, not only on its own, but like on top of other things. So let's play this really quick. This is the only one I didn't cover yet. Okay, so that's pretty much all we've got. You might be wondering what this NA track is down here. This is probably a unique thing to me. Personally, I like to have a little bit of silence at the end of my tracks, and sometimes GarageBand, even Logic Pro, don't always put that in. So even if there's an empty space, so you have to kind of put in something here, turn the volume down to, infinity, negative infinity, whatever that gesture is, whatever that text means there. It means there's not going to be any sound playing when you go over the loop. But that gives you a couple seconds of silence. And then for the master track, this is a little trick in GarageBand. If you go to Mix, Create Volume Fade Out on Main Output, it will give you a fade out automatically, and this little automation thing will appear, and you can decide to have any fades or dips in volume or any other tracks you want to click on. But that's sort of an advanced technique. We're not going to learn about that right now. But that's what those things are. Now, in terms of processing and EQ and mixing and mastering and all this stuff that you see all these videos and techniques about, all of those are important. But for our purposes right now, we're not really going to worry about them because most of these loops have already been processed and EQ'd and they sound good on their own. Of course, you could spend time and make it sound better altogether. But for right now, we're just going to run through the track. And as we're going, I'm going to click on some things and show you how little processing really there is here. To get to these screens, you can go up to View and then Smart Controls or Show Editor or Show Library, but Smart Controls is mainly what we're going to go into here. You can just hit B on the keyboard as well. Now, Smart Controls, we've got this track selected up here. So these are the track controls. You can see track is selected, and we just have the default EQ that's on there, don't have anything else. So that's pretty much what we're going to go through. Let me show you the master really quick and how little is on there when you're a beginner and you don't really need to worry about this. Go to your master. I actually just removed everything that was on there by default. Didn't even turn the multipressor on, but I did have a limiter. So if you go into here, you can click on the little triangle there, Dynamics, Limiter, and the limiter basically is what you think it is. Based on the name, you click on this little guy here. You're going to change the output level. You don't want it to go to 0 because it will start to distort basically once you hit 0 or higher. See how it says plus 0.01? You don't want to go there. Typically the rule that I was taught and learned, and I'm sure there's variations on this, but the one I go with is like 0.02. So you're never quite maxing it out, so you're never hitting digital clipping and distortion. And then the gain is just making the whole track louder. So especially important for the quiet parts because the limiter basically is huge amounts of compression, and I'll turn it off and you might not be able to hear that big of a difference, but what it does is it makes the quiet parts louder and it probably brings down the too loud parts that you're used to hearing and makes everything sort of the same volume. It's very, very common in current music since like the 90s basically, especially for dance music. So here it is without the limiter. And then with the limiter, I don't even know that you're going to be able to hear it. I mean, it depends on if you're on headphones or speakers, but... If you can hear clipping and too much compression, you want to back away and make it, turn down the gain, obviously. As you get better at making music, you'll know what that sounds like. You might not know right away in your beginning stages, but you'll learn over time. You don't want to squash it too much, as they say. Okay, so that is that. Now let's just play through the whole track as we approach the end of the video here. And as it's playing, I'm going to go through the track settings really quick and just let it play without any talking. So hopefully you enjoy. guys liked the video. Subscribe and tell your friends, share it, do whatever you want, and we'll see you next time.